Alright, yo peeps, Sdafhaa here. We've got a brand new patch note coming out with a brand new season and a brand new hero, Marcel. So as usual, I am here to read through it, analyze it, react to it for the first time, and let you guys know what I think and how this will affect the meta. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? From the designers, in this patch we have adjusted the attributes and mana cost of most mid lane mages. Okay, so maybe a mid laner patch here, closer to the average level. We've also made specific adjustments to certain strong and weak mages. Okay, we hope to see more heroes picked in the mid lane. That's good. That is very good, because I think a lot of us can agree that mid lane has been a little bit stagnant for the past couple of patches. Like, this meta mid lane has been very limited. There's only so many mid lane heroes that you can really play in pro play, and it's gotten a little bit boring. So hopefully the changes this time around will really make a big difference for us, and we'll get to see some stuff that's more interesting, because I also want to see more heroes picked in the mid lane. So we have a new hero, Marcel. As usual, we're not gonna go through Marcel because I already reacted to and analyzed his hero spotlight the other day. If you guys haven't checked out that video, make sure you guys look at that. It's literally the video right before this one on my channel. But just to add a little bit of a comment from myself, I think that if Marcel turns out to be kind of OP and needs to be nerfed, the main thing they need to nerf is his passive. I think that is probably the most OP part of his kit. A lot of people will focus on his ultimate, but I think that his passive is the most annoying part of his kit overall. So if they're gonna nerf anything, I feel like they would nerf that. But it all depends on how strong he actually ends up being, because I actually think he might be quite manageable depending on who plays him. Alright, let's hop straight to the hero adjustments. I skimmed through this real quick, and it is long. So, starting off, we have Obsidia Balancing. To improve the low pick rate of Obsidia's attack speed build, we've increased the growth of Bone Shard speed based on attack speed and basic attack effect damage. Oh, allowing attack speed to boost Bone Shard's performance. Meanwhile, to balance her late game strength, we reduce basic attack and Bone Shard base damage. Okay, this sounds good. Based on what I can understand of this, it means that Obsidia is not completely dependent on attacking people to get stacks of Bone Shard. She can actually get it from like item builds and stats, which will make a big difference. So Bone Shard speed has been changed from 18 to 22 to 15 to 45, scaling with attack speed. So you actually can build attack speed Obsidia, meaning Marksman Trinity build is possible. Bone Shard speed growth. Every 10% attack speed increases Bone Shard speed by 0.1. Change to every 10% attack speed increases Bone Shard speed by 0.75. So Obsidia will scale up a lot faster than before, like by a lot, mind you. This is 7 times. Alright, we have to note, this is literally 7 times what it was before. Bone Shard damage from 7% total physical, inheriting 7% attack, to 6% total physical, 6% attack effect. That is not bad at all. I really don't think that's much of a nerf when you compare it to how much quicker she can get her Bone Shard stacks. Ratio of attack effects inherited goes to 100%, and basic attack base damage reduced by 10. This is... I do not think this is a balance. This is a buff. This is 100% a buff. Obsidia's main issue for like a lot of the time that she's been released is that it took her way too long to come online, right? Because she could only build up Bone Shard stacks from auto-attacking, because the amount you get from attack speed was negligible. And now it's actually quite notable. It's doubled in terms of base stat. It is increased by 7 times. This is speed, mind you, this is not damage. But speed still makes a big difference in melting people fast enough in fights. And we have to note, when Obsidia got to late game, even before this, you would melt people fast. Obsidia took very long to come online, but she was still picked in pro play because when she was online, she melts people fast. So in exchange for slightly less damage, they have made her attack faster, scale a little more easily, and basically benefit from Marksman Trinity. Before this, it was a little difficult for Obsidian to build Marksman Trinity. You had to go for more crit, more typical like early effect items because she needed them to be able to participate. Now you don't need that too much. She can actually afford to scale by building the normal item build. She can still go crit as well. I think this expands her item build potential because she can go Marksman Trinity, she can go crit, she can go more of a typical attack speed crit style. There's a lot of possibility here. I still think it'll take her a while to scale up, which is necessary because if they make her too strong early, then she just becomes overpowered. But this is a very good buff. Not a balance. I don't think it's a balance. This is a very good buff for Obsidia, and it should raise her pick rate. Because we already saw her being picked here and there anyway, so it will raise her pick rate a little bit in pro play. And in pubs as well. There's a lot of people in ranked playing Obsidia right now. Next up, we have a Claude balancing. Fix some issues and adjust the damage structure of the ult. Fix an issue where the number of hits would be missing at certain attack speeds. Number of hits of the ultimate now scales at attack speed, and attack effects have been reduced. So apparently Claude had a bug, huh? Like, supposedly some of his hits would just not connect. Claude was already a very solid MM pick. He's still one of the most, like, reliable MM picks in the game. Doesn't really matter what meta it is. As long as marksmen are viable, Claude is gonna be at the forefront. So, knowing that he may not have been performing at max potential before is a little scary. They reduce his attack effects slightly, so he benefits slightly less from items like Corrosion Scythe and Windtalker, but he'll still build those sort of items because it's just the best build for him regardless. And I imagine this will not change Claude much. He'll still be a very good marksman pick. Hello Rice, welcome to the stream. Okay, next up. Ixia nerf, okay. Ixia's laning ability was too strong, you know, I kind of agree with that. So we reduced the base damage of skill 1 and reduced HP regen from her passive when hitting non-hero units. And then further reduced the damage of skill 1. So passive HP regen reduced to -10 against minions increase, which I think is fine. And kind of necessary because honestly Ixia was healing a bit much for a marksman even at level 1. Very difficult to trade against her in the gold lane unless you were playing something like Fighter, you know, like gold lane Freya or CC for example. A lot of other heroes just cannot really out-trade Ixia. So that's fine. And then the skill 1 damage reduced by 25 base, 50 late, and less 10% total physical attack. Yeah, I think this is fine as well. Ixia really did have overly strong laning. Like, she really has one of the best laning phases of any marksman in the game because of her regen, and her skill 1 nuke does a lot of damage at level 1. Alright, 75 damage is nothing to scoff at. 50 is still quite a lot, but it's not quite as ridiculous as it used to be. What I wish they did is I kind of wish they added something for Ixia in the mid to late game, because I agree with nerfing her early game, but she's not exactly a hero that gets picked very much because she's just completely immobile, and it's kind of hard for them to balance that because if you allow her to move while she's ulting, then she kind of becomes OP. But just nerfing her laning without doing something to the other sections of the game for her in exchange does feel a little bit bad. She was very good in lane, but outside of lane, really needs the right team comp to work. So we will probably not see Ixia in pro play, especially now with heroes like Marcel coming around. Yeah, I do feel like Ixia nerf was necessary here, but I feel like they could have maybe balanced it out in another way. Eve nerf. To align with the adjustments to mage attributes, we've reduced the slow effect and optimized casting experience of the ultimate. So Eve has been just the best mid laner for a very long time. In M7, she was my top pick hero in the game next to Claude. And in my opinion, better than Claude in a lot of ways. Just basically the best hero in the game at that point. So I think a nerf for her is necessary if you want to make sure other mages have a chance to share the spotlight. Lilo says that the Ixia nerf is because of the Ixia Diggy combo, which, you know what, you're probably right about that. Okay, so Eve, they reduced her base HP by 200, which is quite a lot actually. HP growth by 40. So 40 times 14 levels is 400 and 400 and then 560. So level 15 Eve will have 760 less HP than before, which is a lot actually. Like the 200 from her base HP and then the 560 from her HP growth adds up to 700 less HP at level 15. And then she's got 3 less physical defense at base and then minus 0.3 physical defense growth. So that also times 14 is 4.2. So minus 7.2 physical defense, minus 700 HP. Holy! I know Eve gets a lot of shield, but that does seem a little heavy-handed. Passive shield has been buffed. Okay, so they did buff her shield slightly in exchange. But that is... oh, a lot of magic powers. Okay, so now I understand why they nerfed the HP so much. It has gone from 20% total magic power to 50% total magic power. So Eve is more of a mid to late game scaling mage now. What was annoying about her was that she was basically good at every phase of the game. Early, mid, late, Eve was always good, you know? So this shifts a lot of her survivability to mid to late game when she actually has enough magic power to get shield back to make up for her HP. Which I think is a fair exchange, and it gives her more counterplay as well. We already know that Esmeralda was one of the heroes that countered Eve. Now that she's more shield dependent, Esmeralda will counter her even more, right? So it gives more counterplay, which I'm honestly okay with, and it makes it so that her HP difference won't be as much, even though her HP stat was reduced so much. Skill 2 cooldown reduced by 2 seconds at late game. Base slow effect reduced by 10%, max slow effect reduced by 20%. Okay, so yeah, skill 2 will be a lot less effective at keeping people in place. It was always kind of annoying, but I'm kind of wondering if they may be going a bit heavy-handed. Ultimate slow effect also reduced by 20%. Optimized camera angle and moved killing notifications to the left. Wow, okay, that's nice. That's a nice little quality of life. So if you're playing Eve and you have your ult up, they will actually move your kill notifications to the left of the screen so that you can see your entire kill box. I don't think they've ever done that before. But yeah, so a lot of slow effect reduction, but she still does do good damage. One of the key points of Eve was that she was not only good at every stage of the game, she was also good at being both zone control and scaling damage. She just offered you every single thing you could ask for in a mid laner. That's why she was top pick every single time. They have not really affected her damage too much, and her survivability is still okay. It's just more of it is in shield now. But this is a lot of slow reduction. She still has solid zone control, she still has the same damage she had before, but she's a little bit squishier and not quite as good as being annoying when she's poking, right? You won't get slowed quite as much, which I think is fair. I was wondering if they might go a bit too heavy-handed with Eve, but now that I look at it from an objective standpoint, I do think that this is okay. Eve genuinely was just a little bit too strong for too long. So I think this is a necessary nerf. And while it does look like a lot at first glance, I think it's because she was just actually that OP. So I think Eve will still be picked. She's still very solid, but she's not gonna be the go-to every single game anymore, right? It's not like, oh, Eve is open, just pick her. You do have to kind of decide, okay, is Eve the right hero for the situation? And that is how every single hero in MLBB should be. So I think this is a good nerf. I think this is very solid. Hello to 4N Shuba. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the stream, sir. Hold on, let me write down some stuff. Okay. Next up, we got Zusin. I feel like Zusin does need to be a bit nerfed more because the only mage hero I'd argue as being better than Eve might be Zusin. The fact that they didn't nerf her is quite curious. Though I do still think that Eve was better from certain angles because Zusin's damage is a bit lacking in exchange for way more crowd control. Alright, so to align with the adjustments to mage attributes and mana cost, we have reduced early and mid-game damage and wave clear speed. Wow. Okay. So base HP reduced by 40, HP growth reduced by 20. So that is times 14, 280. Yeah, 280 plus 40. So 320 HP reduction at level 15, which is a lot less than Eve. Minus 2 base physical defense, and then increase 0.5 physical defense. So Zusin will actually have more physical defense than before at level 15 naturally. If it's 0.5 per level, that means she gets 7. So her final base physical defense stat is 25 rather than 20 that it used to be. Okay. Skill 2 base damage when held has been reduced by 10 early, 5 late. And then when released, reduced by 100 late. Well, I think this is still perfectly fine, actually. Is this a balance? I guess it is a balance. It's definitely a nerf to skill 2. I would say it is a buff to the attributes as well. I think they've labeled that accurately. So it is a balancing in that I think Zusin is still gonna be roughly as tanky as she was before. Maybe a little bit more because physical defense usually translates better compared to just flat HP, unless you're against heroes like Leslie, of course. But then the skill 2 damage reduction is going to be somewhat notable. Zusin is still going to be one of the best mage heroes in the game. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure she's still one of the best mage heroes in the game. The difference is, she will now be more focused on crowd control as compared to damage. They tried to increase her damage a little bit in the previous patch because she wasn't doing enough, and now they're reverting that because they realize like, okay, she's actually a little bit too strong still. Still one of the permaban heroes of all time. So I think this is a necessary balancing. Is it enough to take her off the meta? No. I think that as long as Zusin maintains the kit that she has now, she will always be meta unless they just gut her to the ground. And I don't think they're willing to do that. So, alright. Next up, we got Farsa, also a pretty popular mage, but not as popular nowadays as compared to when M7 was happening. To align with the adjustments to mage attributes and mana cost, we've increased the cooldown of skill 2 and reduced her burst potential in the early and mid game. Not sure I like that too much because compared to the other heroes, one of Farsa's main draws was her ability to burst early game, especially once she hit level 4. I feel like it would have been fine to let her keep that. But a lot of this does come down to this reference to mage attributes and mana cost, so I'm assuming that we're going to see some kind of big change to items or the battlefield later. So Farsa's HP has been increased by 20 base, and HP growth increased by 1.5. 1.5 HP per level. So 21 extra HP. Is it even? It's not even 21 actually. It's like 10. It's like 10 extra HP at level 15. Does that really make much of a difference? And then minus 1 physical defense. I feel like that means her attributes are still gonna be about the same. She just has slightly more HP. And not even that much. It's like an extra 30 HP at level 15. Skill 2 cooldown rescaled. Now the 6.5 to 5 seconds rather than 5 seconds at all levels. Base damage reduced by 50 early, kept the same late. Mana cost increased by 10 early. And then ultimate base damage reduced by 40 early. This will not affect Farsa's ability to kill people at level 4 still. Like, she still does a good amount of damage that squishy people have to be careful of mid lane ganks around that timing. But I do think this wasn't very necessary. Like, yes, Farsa is still one of the better like mage picks, but unless they're intending on actually buffing every other mage, I actually think it would have been fine to keep her the way she was. Did she do a shit ton of damage early game? Yes. But that's kind of meant to be her selling point. She is like the artillery mage of MLBB. So I don't agree too much with the damage nerf, but it's also small enough that I don't think it's too big of a deal. So I think Pharsa is gonna remain around where she was meta-wise before. Now Novaria was one of the heroes that they mentioned in the beginning of the patch, so I'm curious what they did with her. Same thing, adjustments to mage attributes and mana cost, increased slow effect of skill 1, late game damage of skill 2. So her attributes have also been adjusted, minus 20 base HP, minus 8 HP growth. So that times 14 is 112, I think? Yeah, 112. Minus 20 from the base, so that's about 90. 90 extra HP at level 15. But she does have 3 extra base physical defense with a minus 1 physical defense growth. Okay. So she gets about an extra 1.5 physical defense. Again, not too big of a difference being made in the HP numbers here, which makes me very curious about what exactly they've adjusted in terms of mage attributes. Because they're doing it across the board with mages. Skill 1 slow effect has been changed from 20% base, 50% explosion to 20 to 50%, so they share damage. So even the initial slow will still do a good amount of damage. In exchange for that, the explosions damage based on target's max HP has been reduced. It is now a flat 4% all the time, and the mana cost also reduced late. This will help a lot in terms of Novaria's early game actually, because oftentimes even with the slow, very high mobility heroes would be able to dash out of her skill 1 before the explosion. So the fact that the slow itself does more damage is going to make a big difference in terms of poke, because Novaria is not going to be able to consistently poke with skill 2. So skill 1's the only real way she can whittle down HP on a consistent basis. Having that deal increased damage helps a lot. Skill 2 damage has been rescaled, looks like. Extra 40 base plus 20% total magic power. And then, yeah, the 4% of max HP rather than the 4 to 6. This is good. This is good actually, because you might look at the minus 2% max HP as being kind of bad, but one thing you have to remember is the goal of Novaria as a hero is to like 2-shot squishies, right? Or even 1-shot squishies. Novaria has never been a mage that you picked against tanky lineups in the first place. Right? Because yes, she can do a good amount of damage, but if she cannot kill them, then the tanks just out-sustain her. And that's just not good. If you're against a tanky lineup, you wouldn't really want to pick Novaria. Which means that having very high HP scaling doesn't help that much. Because you would actually end up doing a lot less damage to squishies, which are your main target, compared to tanks, which are not your main target. In exchange, you get extra total magic power scaling. 20% total magic power scaling more than makes up for 2% of the target's max HP, especially against squishies, right? Because 20% of Novaria's magic power is way more than 2% of a squishy hero's max HP. That's something to keep in mind. This is a very nice buff. It makes a lot of sense as well, because again, you're not supposed to be playing Novaria against tanks anyway. You want to be targeting the squishies. So 20% magic power more than makes up for minus 2% on her actual skill 2. And then she gets extra damage from her skill 1 as well. And then her ultimate costs 100 at all levels. I don't think that should be a big problem, because I don't think Novaria runs into too many mana issues anyway. Typically the fight is over before Novaria runs out of mana, unless it's just a really weird one. But this is a nice buff. Honestly, it's a nice buff for Novaria. She is still kind of difficult to play, because there's very high mobility assassins that can reach her in the back line. There's still pretty tanky heroes that can quite easily dive, like Sora and Lapu Lapu. So Novaria's issue was never really the damage, even though that was a pretty big issue. It was because like her damage is too inconsistent, and she's, even if she can fly away, your enemy's job is done if you chase her away from the fight. Alright, so this helps, but Novaria's core design makes her a very niche hero in the first place. So she will be used when the time is right, but otherwise not a particularly popular mage. Okay, next up we have Eudora. Yeah, they are just adjusting mages across the board, huh? Reduce skill downtime in early mid-game. Oh boy. Okay. Base HP increased by 37%. Why was it 2,403? Why would they make it 3? So my plus 37. And then plus 2 HP growth for another 28. For about like 50-60 HP. Base physical defense reduced by 1, and then defense growth reduced by 0.2, which adds up to 2.8, 3.8. 3.8 less physical defense. Not really a big issue because Novaria's goal is to not get hit in the first place. Oh, sorry, not Novaria, Eudora. But yeah, like a 3-ish physical defense won't make too much of a difference because if someone is going to one-shot her in the late game, they will one-shot her anyway. Skill 1 cooldown reduced by 5 seconds at all levels. Wow, and then the mana cost has been increased in exchange. So, are they trying to make it so that Eudora wants to build Enchanted to make up for the mana issues? I don't think so. I feel like Eudora will still want to go into like Genius Lightning. And then the skill 2 mana cost also increased by 10 at all levels. It looks like they're trying to make Eudora buy Enchanted Talisman as a first item. They're trying to make her more of a skill spam mage rather than a one-shot mage. But Eudora still works the best as a one-shot mage. She does run into mana issues from time to time, so there is a chance that this could make a small change to her item build. But I will say, minus 2-second cooldown on her skill 1 makes her very annoying. Right? It does look like they're nerfing a lot of the other mages in the early game, right? Like Eve's early game is a little worse, Zusin's early game is a little worse, Farsa's early game is slightly worse, but still better than Eudora, I would say. Unless Eudora ambushes her. But Eudora looks to be a hero that they're trying to specialize into more early mid-game and maybe going into more of an Enchanted Talisman build if you want to retain consistency in the late game. Which is interesting. Kai says, time for Eudora jungle. I don't think so. Even if it is more spammable, it's still gonna take her forever to kill a jungle camp. It's a funny idea though. Will this make Eudora more viable? I generally think it could. I think this could make Eudora more viable. Will she be like pro-meta strong? Probably not. But we might see her as a niche pick if like a team just really wants like a solid early game mage with a point and click stun. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for something like that. I would not be surprised if we start seeing Eudora just a little bit in pro play. Again, I don't think she'll be popular, but she might appear. And that's already quite a lot. Alright, next up we have Gord. Adjusted the damage distribution and reduced cooldown of skill 1. I'm just gonna skip reading the first half of the sentence because it looks like it's the same for every mage. So, base HP increased by 23, HP growth increased by 2.5. So, that is... I'm being made to do a lot of math today. 35 HP. So, a total of about 60 to 70 extra HP. Plus 4 base physical defense. And then plus 10 movement speed. Okay. Pretty nice stat spread, definitely a buff. More HP, more physical defense, slightly faster as well is very nice across the board for Gord. Passive damage has been changed. Ooh. So there is a hero level scaling rather than total magic power scaling. It will make him stronger in the mid game, but maybe less strong in the late game. I don't know how I feel about that. That seems like a bit of a weird decision. But it does make him stronger in the early mid game in exchange for being weaker in the late game. Interesting choice. Skill 1 damage reduced by 45 early, 65 late, and then minus 15% total magic power. Cooldown reduced by 2 seconds early, 1.5 seconds late, mana cost reduced by 10 early. Skill 2 damage reduced by 20 late, reduced by 4% late. Interesting. So Gord's late game damage is probably going to be a little worse. I think it still adds up to a pretty okay level because 8 times 15 is a lot. How much? 100? Wait, hold on. 8 times 15 is 120. That's a lot, actually. Actually, that's a lot. Maybe not that weak in the late game. Yes, it'll be a little less than like the max scaling because like you would get quite a lot of scaling from like the total magic power if you go into items like Holy Crystal. But in exchange for losing that, Gord is a lot more effective early, mid, and a little less item dependent late, which is actually quite interesting. In exchange for less like damage ceiling, he has easier access to damage overall. And this is his passive as well. Hold on, let's look at his passive real quick. I need to kind of remind myself because Gord is not really a hero we see often, right? After Gord hits an enemy 4 times with his skills, next skill damage will deal an additional true damage. Yeah, that's true damage too!
Redefine reality.
That's true damage! That's 120 true damage at level 15! Hold on, what was the cooldown on that? Is there a cooldown? There's no cooldown.
My magic will redefine reality.
I don't remember the cooldown, but that's actually quite a lot. We have to know true damage is strong. True damage is always strong. That's actually quite good. Now Gord obviously also has his own issues. That's why we don't see a lot of him. His movement speed is slow, so the extra 10 helps out a lot. But his ultimate is also very all-in. Compared to Farsa, who can feather airstrike from quite a distance away and then fly away if things go wrong, if Gord commits Mystic Gush, he has to commit. And he has to hopefully kill or get close to killing his opponent. No cooldown procs every 4 hits. Oh, there is no cooldown. Damn, I did not know that. I never see Gord, so I actually did not know that. Okay, that's a lot then. That is a lot. Gord will murder you. He is actually a pretty scary artillery mage. Obviously his range is not as long and he's a little more vulnerable because he doesn't have things like wings by wings, but if you go like Winter Crown on Gord, he could actually be quite a threat. This is actually a really good buff. This is kind of scary actually. This is actually kind of a scary buff to Gord. Naisu is going to be very happy about this. Holy shit. I am going to need to raise my thoughts about Gord. This could actually make him a little bit meta. I don't think he'll be top meta, but he might actually be a fairly okay mage pick to go for. Damn. Alright, sure. Hello Kai, welcome to the stream. Okay, Lo Yi buff, okay. Adjusted damage distribution and increased skill 1 damage to improve wave clear. So once again, base HP reduction by 40, HP growth by 20. That's a good amount. That's like 280. So 320 total HP loss at 15. -2 physical defense, 0.3 physical defense growth reduction as well. Okay. Okay. Definitely a lot squishier. Which is surprising, since Lo Yi is honestly quite vulnerable a lot of the time. She just straight up has no mobility at all. Her passive base damage has been reduced by 65 base, but plus 5 times hero level. So at level 15, that actually ends up doing more damage. So Yin Yang Reaction does more damage late, but less damage early, which I think is fair. Because it hits like a fudging truck. Honestly, it will still hit like a fudging truck, but at least it hits like a smaller truck. That's my metaphor. Skill 1 base damage reduced by 75 early. Mana cost reduced by 10 late. Skill 2 mana cost reduced by 45 early, 70 late. Cooldown rescale to 10 seconds at late. Okay. So Loi will definitely do a lot less damage early. Like the skill 1 damage reduced by 75 plus the passive damage reduction is a lot. She'll still hit like a truck in the mid game, but she won't just randomly take 80% of your HP with a single combo in lane anymore, which I think is very necessary. But I don't think they needed to nerf her HP. Again, we need to see exactly what they've done with the items, because they are kind of like nerfing and adjusting HP across all mages for a reason. They've probably adjusted Clock of Destiny. That's what I'm assuming, because why else would you adjust the HP and physical defense growth of every single mage hero? Kaisel said, a roamer friend of mine tried out Marcel today, and honestly he's kind of mid, very much in need of a buff. I actually think he could be strong. I think it just depends on like, people need to figure out how to play him first. I genuinely think he could be quite good, but he plays differently than your typical roamer. Okay, oh, Kagura! Kagura buff! Lilo gonna be happy about that one. We've adjusted damage distribution, enhanced early game laning and wave clearing. Thank you, she needs that. Reduce ultimate cooldown and damage. I will take less ultimate damage for more frequent ultimates. Yes, please. Okay. So, base HP increased by 5. Why even increase it at that point? HP growth reduced by 1.8. Why do some of these heroes have such weird stat numbers? Physical defense reduced by 2. Physical defense growth increased by 0.1. So, not much. She's probably about the same, HP and defense-wise. Skill 1 base damage increased by 50 at level 1. Damn! That's nice. And then minus 5 mana early, minus 10 mana late. Ultimate when holding Umbrella, base damage reduced by 80 early, 50 late, and then minus 10% total magic power. Cooldown reduced by 7 early, 3 late. Honestly, big. Mana cost reduced by a good amount as well. Very nice. Okay. Ultimate without Umbrella. That's my preferred ultimate. Base damage reduced by 55, 45. 55. And then reduced by 35 late. Reduced by 10% magic power. Extra damage. Reduced by 70 early, 80 late. 15% total. Cooldown reduced by 7 as well. They share a cooldown. They share the mana as well. Okay. Reduced cooldowns has been very, very needed. I really do think Kagura has needed reduced cooldown on her ultimate. And I didn't mind losing some damage in exchange for that, but this is actually a good amount of damage across the board that we're losing. But her skill 1 does do a little bit more, which I guess balances it out with the cooldown. Having more access to her ultimate though is the big thing. One of the most awkward things about playing Kagura is that she basically cannot consistently kill people without Yin Yang Overturn. So Yin Yang Overturn is available a lot more frequently. Like, do not scoff at 7 seconds in the early game. That makes a big difference. So that helps a lot. And then the extra 50 damage to help her wave clear is also really needed because she just couldn't match the wave clear of other mages. Kagura was already kind of a niche pick that you would pick up sometimes if all the other meta mages was taken out of the pool in pro play. So this will just make her a little bit more viable. Unfortunately, I will say, I don't think this will make Kagura top pick. I do not think she's top pick still because she's very much a mage assassin. And it's kind of hard to find a place for that type of hero, right? Like, her scaling is good, but very dependent on skill cooldowns. So, she's a solid mage, don't get me wrong. Teams will still pick her up, but I do think they'll still pick other mages first. That is my personal opinion. I love Kagura, of course, and I want to see her buff just a little bit more, personally. I think they could have reduced a little bit of the damage reduction, but this is still very nice. I still think this is a very, very nice buff, and that'll make Kagura feel very good to play. Side eye from Lilo, yes, I know. Okay, Valentina Balance. We have adjusted damage distribution, increased damage of skill 1 to enhance early laning, and wave clearing. Also very needed. Valentina's early game wave clear is bad for a mage. So, attributes. Base HP reduced by 80, HP growth reduced by 15. Okay. Good amount actually. Quite a good amount. That's like what, 210-ish? So it adds up to about 300 HP total. Like, oh, that's a reduction, right? That's 300 less HP. So that's actually a good amount of HP lost. Base physical defense reduced by 1, defense growth increased slightly. So they're actually giving a lot of mages like extra physical defense in exchange for less HP, which is interesting. Skill 1 damage increased by 175 at level 1. What? Are you kidding me? That is insane! Reminder, she can cast this twice. You have to remember, Valentina's skill 1 can be cast twice, which means that is an extra 350 damage at level 1. Wunten, I think you may have miscalculated something here. That's a lot. That's kind of a lot. Yes, she has 20% less total magic power scaling, but that's actually fine. Once you get into the late game, Valentina is more of a utility mage by stealing ultimates and stuff. Extra 300 damage at level 1! Valentina is meta. I'll say it right now, Valentina is meta, just off of this. Purely off of this change alone, Valentina will be meta. I am calling it now. Skill 2 base damage has been reduced in exchange, so like minus 35 damage, which can add up because skill 2 also can be cast twice. But her skill 1 just does so much damage, dude. Like, you are not really going to feel the difference in skill 2 damage in exchange for the amount of skill 1 damage you get. Valentina is meta just off of this. She always had value. Like, we have to remember, before they nerfed Valentina, she was one of the top picked mages for many, many patches. There was probably like a 1 to 2 year period where Valentina was like one of the most consistent mage picks. Because she could get EXP from her passive, she could steal ultimates and change team compositions. The only thing holding her back recently is just how much damage she did early. Like, her wave clear was kind of bad. Her poke was not that consistent. This makes a big difference, I'll tell you. So, yeah, this is a lot. I'm gonna play Valentina more again. I can't, like, she's one of the mage heroes I play, despite not, like, mid lane being my worst lane. And I just kind of had to stop playing her because her level, like, her early levels just felt so bad. There's a reason people pick her only as a counter to Lucas and Sora in the EXP lane, too. So this makes a big difference. Man, this is a long patch. Okay, are they actually changing every mage? Holy. Okay, Nana buff. Increase skill 2's damage again. Ah, damn it. Okay. The fudging plushie. HP growth increased by 12.5, which is over 100 HP. Not bad at all. And then 0.1 physical defense growth. Okay. If you look at the slider, it's still halfway. Yeah, that's what scares me. Skill 1 cooldown increased by 0.5 across the board. Mana cost increased by 5 late. Skill 2 cooldown reduced by 2.5 early. That's annoying. That is kind of annoying. And the damage increased by 100 and plus 20% total magic power. Magic defense reduction has been reduced by 10% to make up for it, which I think is a fine balance. This is gonna be very annoying to play against. It's definitely more annoying because you can cast Melina a lot more often, but I wouldn't say that it's a very good buff for Nana. Like, it's a nice little buff, but it's not a particularly notable one because Nana is not that popular in the first place. Like, her poke is good, her damage scaling is not bad, But outside of that, she doesn't offer too much utility because her stun is a skill shot. Melina does help a lot, but most pro players will know how to dodge it. Could she be a niche pick? I think so. I'm still waiting to see Stormy play Nana again. When he does, this will feel very nice for him. But for everyone else, this will not make them suddenly pick Nana. It's a nice increase. It's a nice buff for players who already played the hero. Not including the ones that go auto attack Nana. But it will not make her more meta than before, in my personal opinion. Cyclops is so annoying in pubs right now. Reduce skill 1's cooldown and damage, adjusted skill 2's damage scaling ratio across early late game, okay? Base HP increased by 40, HP growth reduced by 0.1, physical defense growth reduced by 0.2, so not too different from before. Skill 1 cooldown reduced by 1 second. Base damage reduced by 35 early, okay. Skill 2 decay ratio reduced slightly, so does a little less damage late, and then the magic bonus has been increased. This does not change much, dude. Cyclops is still gonna be really annoying. So Cyclops is not popular in pro play, but he is strangely popular in pub play. I think people in pubs just don't really know how to deal with a Cyclops properly, and oftentimes underestimate Cyclops. So because of that, he's able to scale up very well into the late game. He's able to spam his ultimate to an annoying degree. And while they did reduce his damage slightly here, it's not gonna make much of a difference. Once he gets like 2 or 3 items, he's still going to be super annoying to handle, and you need to actually have the right hero to play against him. Will we see Cyclops in pro play is the question that I think a lot of people will be asking. And I will say probably not, because pro players do know how to play against him. So I don't think this will make too much of a difference. For me, this is kind of a net zero adjustment. Aurora buff, she needs it. She needs a buff. Reduce cooldown on skill 2. Physical defense growth reduced by 0.1. She needs movement speed, man. Aurora needs movement speed. Skill 1 mana cost increased by 15. Skill 2 cooldown reduced by 2 early, 3 late. Ultimate mana cost increased. Is this a buff? Doesn't feel too much like a buff. Drop something there. This does not feel like a buff to me, I will say. Hold on, let me reconfirm real quick. Which skill was her skill 2 again? I've kind of forgotten because she's also a hero we just never see.
As fleeting as a snowflake's
Oh, the
breath,
fan shape.
as timeless as a glacier's heart.
I mean, it's not bad. It is a nice skill to have on a lower cooldown. I guess it is control frequency. Ray is right. It helps her control frequency because Aurora is designed to be more of a control mage rather than a damage mage. Minus 2 seconds cooldown is not bad. The problem is the cooldown is still quite high. And she lacks mobility, which means that if she's not able to if her team isn't able to finish someone off while they're frozen, she's still in a lot of trouble, especially against dive heroes. And there's still quite a lot of those right now. Like EXP lane, there's a lot of strong heroes that can one-shot mages. So yes, it helps play into Aurora's identity as a control mage, but I personally don't think it's enough. Not to mention that it's quite easy to miss, actually. Like, most of Aurora's kit is quite easy to miss. That's also why she doesn't get played much. Her mobility is low, so she's not much of a help against like higher mobility assassins like Lancelot, Hayabusa, Fanny, all of that stuff. Even against fighters, she might have a difficult time. And then she can miss. So yeah, Aurora needs a lot more help than this. This is just a small little quality of life improvement, if you ask me. Vexana. Adjusted to align with mage attributes and mana cost adjustment. So no additional explanation. Base HP increased by 20, HP growth increased by 5. So that's like 70, 90. 90 total HP. Physical defense growth reduced by 0.2. Movement speed increased by 5. Could they not give Aurora some movement speed? Yeah, if they're gonna give Vexana 5 movement speed, may as well give Aurora a little bit of movement speed. Both of them are slow AF. In fact, I'd argue Vexana is a little faster. Skill 2 mana cost reduced, oh no, increased by 10. So also a net 0 change. I'm very curious what exactly they've done in terms of mage attributes and mana cost, because there has to be a reason they're just changing mages across the board. Kai says for Aurora, just change her second skill back with the freeze at close range and she'll be good to go. I agree, actually. I do actually agree. Because like Aurora right now is just genuinely not a threat to anyone. I have played multiple games with an Aurora where like my entire team gets frozen by her for her full combo duration. And then we just survive and kill her. So yeah, I would say that Vexana and Aurora both have really like kinda nothing changes. Does not make much of a difference at all. Zask, reduced cooldown of ultimate. Base HP increased by 100, which is one of the higher amounts we've seen. Physical defense increased by 2. Physical defense growth increased by 0.5. Movement speed increased by 10. Zask got everything that Aurora was hoping for. Alright. Skill 3 mana cost reduced by 15 late. And then his ultimate cooldown reduced by 12. Early, 10 seconds late. Mana cost increase early, reduce late. Not bad, not bad. Zask is also a bit of a hard mage to play because he's very stationary, right? He's a lot less fragile than other mages because he can just hop into his ultimate, right? And having a lower cooldown on that means that he's a lot more survivable. Like again, I mentioned earlier, 12 seconds makes a big difference. So he will have his ultimate available for most fights, which means that he will generally be able to survive most fights as long as the enemy team is not fed enough. The issue is there's too many heroes that can escape from his ultimate. He doesn't quite do enough damage fast enough unless he's super farmed, but he's not exactly a hero that farms fast or dominates early through kills. So he's got a bit of an awkward identity. It is a very nice buff to the cooldown, I will say. And he's a lot tankier as well, not to mention faster slightly. So he's gonna be more annoying to kill. I think that's the main summary of Zask. He will be more annoying to kill. And that's about it. If you want zone control, Eve is still better. Novaria got buffed as well now, so her damage is actually a little more consistent. There's very, very niche moments where Zask is going to be the pick. Like even Gord now is probably better after the buffs they gave him. I'm really expecting to see more Gord actually. But yeah, Zask got a nice buff, but unless something really changes in the meta, we're not gonna see much of him. Veil, increase early game cooldown of skill 2 and reduced ultimate cooldown. Okay. Base HP increased by 100 as well. HP growth reduced by 0.5. Physical defense increased by 2. So he is definitely a little tankier. Not by much though. Skill 2 cooldown increased by 2 seconds. So that's his knock up, which is fine, I guess, because it's not really a skill you want to spam too much. It's more of a setup for your full combo and a disengage tool. But it does mean that you can't use it for both. If you're using it for engaging and you don't one-shot your opponent, the chances of you using it again to slow down pursuers while you're trying to escape is low. Mana cost has been reduced to make up for it, but mana cost usually isn't too big of a deal for most heroes in MLBB. Ultimate cooldown reduced by 7 seconds, which is the same as Kagura, actually. So that helps. It's actually the same cooldown as Kagura now, if I remember correctly. So that's nice. It does mean they're giving a bit of love to the assassin mages, because they have definitely been left behind with the times. Oh, I got shocked by that. Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. Okay, ultimate. Yeah, mana cost reduced by 30, early 90 late. Quite a lot. Base damage has been reduced by 100 across the board though. So... is Veil better? He can use his ultimate more often. And that helps. But if you're going to play Veil, you may as well play Kagura. Kagura is still better, I would say. Again, very few situations where you would prefer Veil over Kagura if you want some kind of one-shot mage. And now that they're adjusting Eudora, I would even argue that she might be slightly better. So Veil needs a lot more, I would say. Okay. Did anything happen to Lunox? Ask. We haven't seen yet. As far as we've seen though, no. Faramis. To align with the oh, that's the same. We've adjusted ultimates early and late game cooldown. Oh. Gin might be happy about this one. So, base HP increased by 78. HP growth increased by 4. So, a good amount. Probably about 100 extra HP at late game. Physical defense growth increased by 0.3. Movement speed reduced by 5. I think this is the first hero who has had a movement speed reduction. It would have been nice if they took it from Faramis and gave it to Aurora. You know, it's not going to make much of a difference. Skill 1 mana cost increased by 15. So, a lot less spammable. Skill 2 mana cost also increased by 15. Ultimate cooldown changed from 80 seconds all the time to 90 to 70. What did they label this as? An adjustment. Personally, I think this is a nerf. I don't think this is an adjustment. I would label this a nerf. Because Gin is correct. Mana is gonna be very annoying for Faramis early. Right? His skill 1 and skill 2 together cost an extra 30 mana at level 1. And his ultimate is actually slower in the early game. They're basically trying to make it so that Faramis can, like, only really hit his peak in the later stages. I would not even say that 70 seconds is particularly short. Like, yes, a 10-second cooldown is a nice reduction, but that's around 80 seconds compared to some of the other heroes who were at like 30 or 40 seconds before. It's still unlikely you will have it for every fight. Right? Even at 70 seconds, you're not gonna have his Netherrealm available for every single fight. Usually the sweet spot for that is like 30 to 40 seconds at least. So this is nearly double that, even after the reduction. And in exchange for that, they increased all of his mana costs. So you have to build in with Enchanted Talisman. Obviously, with cooldown reduction though, it will make a pretty big difference, I guess. So you will still have it if you go like a CDR build, which I think you probably will anyway. Now that the mana cost has been increased, you definitely want to go like Enchanted. So maybe it's a reversion to an older build style. He's still good in niche situations. There are certain teams who will enjoy playing Faramis if they want to really brawl all of the time. But otherwise, you will want to go other mages, I will say. You only play Faramis if you specifically want him for his Netherrealm. And since they did reduce the cooldown on that in the late game, I guess it's not too bad. But I would still personally consider it a nerf. Because you're kind of locked into a CDR build now, if you really want to maximize the hero. When before, you could actually opt to go for damage instead. Alright, Xavier. Reduced cooldown of skill 2 in the late game. The base HP reduced by 115. Am I seeing that right? That's quite a lot, okay. 115 reduction, base defense increased by 2, physical defense growth reduced by 0.1. Skill 1 mana cost increased by 15 across the board, skill 2 cooldown reduced by 2 seconds late. Not too big of an adjustment, but it is a small quality of life. I would actually consider this a small buff. Because he is a little squishier than before, but Xavier was squishy anyway, so the small like HP difference won't affect him too much, except in like very specific situations. Skill 1 mana cost increase will affect him in certain situations because he does spam it a lot. So there is a chance of him running out of mana earlier, but once you get to the late stages, he should be okay. And then skill 2 cooldown in the late game being reduced actually helps quite a bit because Mystic Field is really annoying in team fights. I would say that once you get into later stages, in addition to his damage, the most annoying part of Xavier is how Mystic Field just completely stops your momentum and doesn't allow you to step into that small circle. So having more access to it is actually kind of nice. I would consider this a small buff. But if you really want the late game scaling on your mage, you would go Lunox. Lunox is just better in every way. And I would argue Sicilian is better in most situations as well. So it's a nice little adjustment to Xavier, and it's very good for if you want like a team fighting late game scaling mage, but there's other options that I think is better. What I'm hearing is I can jump Xavier now. I think you could always jump Xavier. He's just a little squishier now. Valier buff. Reduce skill 1 cooldown in the mid to late game. I still think Valier is one of the most annoying heroes in the game to play against, especially as a tank fighter style player. Base HP reduced by 15, physical defense reduced by 3, growth reduced by 0.1, movement speed increased by 5. Skill 1 recharge interval reduced by 2 seconds late, which honestly does help because Valier needs the extra damage once you get into later stages. But as someone who hates playing against Valier, I'm just thinking this is gonna be annoying. Mana cost also reduced overall, 20 at late as well, so he's not gonna have mana issues. Skill 2 mana cost reduced, 5 early, 10 late. So yes, this is a Valier buff. Not too bad of a Valier buff, but he's still a very niche mage. He's annoying in pubs, and I personally don't like him because of the heroes that I play. But we're not going to see him much in pro play because he also runs into the issue of not having much mobility and only one built-in Purify to work around as a defensive measure. And of course the Searing Torrent pushback. But if you have high mobility or dive heavy comps, which there are a lot of nowadays, Freya, Sora, Lapu Lapu, Lancelot, right, all of that, you can outplay Valier quite easily. The only time you would play Valier is if the enemy team had a lot of slower frontline tanks, right? Valier is only good against teams with slower frontline tanks. It's the same as X-Borg. You know, both of the flamethrower guys are good against like bulky enemy teams. But if you're against a bulky enemy team, then just go X-Borg. And if you want a mage, again, you go Lunox. Because she can melt the tanks. So, unless they've nerfed Lunox notably, we're not gonna see much of Valier. Chang'e adjusted in general. HP reduced by 60, HP growth by 0.5, physical defense increased by 1, physical defense growth increased by 0.3, movement speed reduced by 10. Another movement speed reduction. This will affect Chang'e a little less because he's already one of the faster mages in the game. Skill 1 mana cost reduced by 10 across the board. Skill 2 mana cost reduced by a lot. It's actually 60 at all levels now, so that helps. Ultimate mana cost also reduced. So I would not say this is a net zero change. Her skills are definitely more spammable, but the damage they do will still be the same. Now, Chang'e did have the possibility of running into some mana issues, so having mana reduction across the board helps a lot. This will definitely not affect them much in pro play, but I agree with Gin in that it might make a small impact in pubs. But to me, this is a very, very small buff. This is like a very small buff. It's not quite net zero like with Aurora and Vexana, but it's a very small buff. Because if you play her correctly, you're not gonna run into mana issues anyway. Plus, she's the mage that steals purple, you know? So, again, if you play her right, you're not really going to feel much of a difference. Odette As a mage with short range and no mobility, we have increased her HP and movement speed, significantly reduced mana cost, but also reduced her excessive ultimate damage for balance. I kind of think she needed that excessive ultimate damage. Okay, base attributes. HP increased by 70, HP... Whoa! 20 HP growth. So 280 plus 280 plus 70. 350 extra HP. Her physical defense growth reduced by 0.1, movement speed increased by 10. 300 HP is a good bit. There are a couple of mages who have gotten 300 HP, but it is definitely not common. Skill 1 mana cost reduced by 20 early, 15 late, which helps. Skill 2 mana cost reduced by 15 across the board. Ultimate base shield reduced by 200 early, which isn't too big of a deal because most people's damage early is not gonna be there yet. And then the damage it does is now reduced by 400 early, 200 late, and then minus 150% total magic power. But they labeled this as an adjustment. Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Cause her mana costs are better, but like a lot of other mages, she doesn't really run into issues with mana costs unless a fight just lasts for a ridiculously long time. She's a lot more tanky, which is nice, and she's got extra 10 movement speed. Not very many mages were given that. So it helps her survive on her own. But I feel like Odette has always been kind of a blitzkrieg mage. It's more of a I'm gonna kill you before you can kill me kind of hero, right? Giving her more HP is nice. Movement speed is not bad. But I actually don't think she needed it. Because her ult is meant to murder people or chase them away from her so fast that she doesn't have to worry about survivability afterwards. If she ults and kills like 1 or 2 people in a fight, her job is already done. That's how Odette is supposed to be played. So having this much less magic damage is probably going to hurt a little bit. Because like the rest of her abilities don't contribute too much to a team fight overall. She's very much an ultimate one-trick pony. I would say I can understand why they would do this, but it does change the way that Odette players might need to approach her, I will say. I think that's the biggest impact. Like, you might have to play Odette a little bit differently. Like, you can't just willy-nilly ult in anymore. You have to actually use it at the right time a little bit. Yeah, I personally am not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. Yes, it's better if the game adjusts heroes so that they can't be played as recklessly. But sometimes you need that balance, you know? I agree with Lilo. I like the boom boom burst of Odette, you know? You hop into Johnson and then you drive by, like what Oop says as well. So this feels a little rough. It does make Odette feel like a more normal mage. But not every hero needs to be normal, is what I will leave this off with. Selena, skill 1 mana cost reduced by 20 early. 20 across the board. Skill 2 mana cost reduced by 10 late. Very net zero. Skill 1's a little more spammable. But Selena's always been more of a, like, you hit it, you know? And this doesn't change too much more. Again, I'm very curious about what exactly they've changed with Mage Mana, because there has to be a reason they're adjusting all of this. Oh wait, no, that's a nerf! It's actually less spammable. Sorry, I think I saw that wrong. This is what happens when I have to do so much math. Yeah, this is actually a nerf to Selena. Okay, I guess. I'm a little confused about this one, but Selena's still gonna be a very good niche pick. In the right hands, she changes games. In the wrong hands, she's a minion. Lilia buff. Also just mana cost adjustments. HP growth reduced by 2, physical defense growth reduced by 0.1. So she's actually a little less tanky, but not by too much, because that only adds up to like what, 30 HP? 28 specifically. She has 28 less damage at level 15. Not much of a difference. Skill 1, mana cost reduced by 10 and then 5. Skill 2 reduced by 10 late. Also kind of a nada. What is the reason they are adjusting all these mages? Like, I understand the ones that they're making notable changes to, but they're actually just changing the stats and mana cost of mages across the board. So there has to be a reason for that. They're either changing the way a stat is calculated, or they're changing like a core item. Lunox. Literally only attribute changes. I'm actually surprised they didn't nerf her. I feel like if they've already nerfed Eve and they've nerfed Farsa, they're not nerfing Lunox? Kimmy is right here as well. Are they nerfing Kimmy? No, they're only adjusting HP. Lunox has 180 less HP, which is a lot less early, but then she has 14 HP growth. It's still less HP than before in the late game, but she also has an extra 3 physical defense and extra 0.5 physical defense growth. This is a buff, personally, I would say. Because hold on, 14 times 14 is... fudge, that's a difficult one to calculate. 50, 100, 196, 200. So just under 200. It's actually about the same HP. It's actually a little more HP. Because she lost 180. Right? Yeah, she lost 180, she gets an extra 190. And she has extra physical defense. So even though it's small, this is a buff. Okay. Kimmy HP has been reduced by 70 HP. Down, it's a lot. Is that the highest we've seen today? That's 27.5. 27.5 HP growth on Kimmy. Oh, but in exchange, she has 5 less physical defense and minus 0.3 physical defense growth. You know what? I'm okay with that. That's actually a lot of HP though. Like what's 27 times 14? I don't want to do math anymore, guys. That's like 300. That's actually 300 HP. This patch review is just math? Yeah. I'm getting to train my mental arithmetic at least. Kadita also just HP adjustments. HP increased by 70, HP growth reduced by 4.7. Very strange number, but at least now it's a flat. Movement speed reduced by 5. Okay, I will say most of these HP adjustments will not make too much of a difference. Cecilion gets extra 45 HP, minus 1 physical defense, minus 0.1 growth, movement speed reduced by 5. Zetian, I think they might... Personally, I feel like Zetian needs a slight nerf to her damage. Like, I think she actually does too much damage now after the recent buffs, but I don't want them to nerf her too much. I just want them to nerf her damage slightly, because holy shit, she hits hard. But it looks like no. HP is reduced by 170, HP growth by 20. So that adds up to more. That actually gives her more HP. She has 1 less physical defense and extra 0.1 physical defense growth. Skill 1 mana cost reduced by 10 across the board. Zetian's still gonna be very good. In fact, again, I'd consider this a very, very slight buff because she did lose physical defense. Remember, defense stats tend to have higher value than pure HP. I don't know the exact conversion, but you need to think about the fact that defense stats are usually more valuable than just HP because defense scales better. Except against heroes that, you know, minus defense. Phobius. Okay, an actual buff. Not a mage. Not a mage. No more math, guys. Phobius is strong in the early and mid game, but struggles in the late game. We've increased his late game potential. Very needed, honestly. Magic damage based on target's max HP rescaled from 4% to 4 to 6%, which is very nice. Shield based on Phobius' max HP from 8% to 8 to 12. Okay. Okay. That is not bad. Not bad at all. I wonder if this will make you want to build Guardian Helmet. It does mean that you ideally want to go back to Thunderbelt build. I think recently a lot of people were switching to War Axe, right? A lot of people were switching to War Axe Phobius because his late game is so bad that you may as well try to win early mid game with him instead and survive through sustain instead of sheer bulk. That's why they kind of switched off Thunderbelt build. Now that he has a little bit more HP scaling, Thunderbelt probably is good again. And then I wonder if you want to go Guardian. The problem is he's very all-in. Alright, there's a few all-in EXP laners in the game, but the others have ways of getting out, right? Like, say you compare, if you compare Phobius to Yuzong. Yuzong can Furious Dive in, Black Dragon Form out. Lapu Lapu can Bravest Fighter in, Raging Slash has so much utility that he can go in and out depending on what he wants. Sora can use either his Cloud form or his Lightning form depending on the situation, so he has flexibility there. Compare this to Phobius, where if he ults in, he better hope that his enemies die. Compare it to Terizla NGL? Yeah, a little bit, but Terizla also has very much inbuilt bulkiness. They kind of have trade-offs because Terizla is tankier stat-wise, but Phobius has iframes. So this helps. I do think it's a nice change. I think it's a necessary one, but is it enough? I will personally say no. Considering we haven't really seen any nerfs to the more popular EXP laners, I think that Phobius is still kinda low on the pick counter. We will still see him from time to time because he's still better than a lot of other EXP laners, but nowadays he does get countered by a lot, and his value is just not as good as it was before. Hilda, oh, this is just a visual effect optimization. Added visual effects to indicate when enhanced basic attack is active. Okay, I mean it's a small quality of life improvement. Doesn't change too much. She's still annoying, but I think Hilda's in an okay state. Her goal is to completely cripple you early game. If she's not able to do that, then she becomes very, like, her value is very low. So that's fine. Glue was exceptionally durable given his high damage, making him frustrating to play against. I agree, actually. People have been banning Glue quite consistently in pubs because his damage is fairly consistent, scale's not too bad, and he is so difficult to kill. I actually think that he should be nerfed a little more. But now he has a -1 damage reduction per stack. Hold on. I'm gonna real quick see to remember like how many stacks Glue can have. Up to 5. So that is a 5% damage reduction, which is not small. It's not small. 5% damage reduction can actually add up to a good amount. So that helps. Again, I do think he could be nerfed a little more because he genuinely is annoying to play against. But I think this is fine for now. Hold on, where is Phobius? I want to check something real quick. Yeah, it just occurred to me that Phobius's passive does magic damage. His skill 1 does both physical and magic damage. His skill 2 does magic damage, and then his ult does physical damage. He's got a very weird split damage scaling, which probably affects the way that he's built somewhat, and actually results in his damage not being as high as it could be, because you can only go one way or the other. And oftentimes you have to build tank as well, so he's just not doing as much damage as he could be because of how his numbers scale differently. Shiper asks, when are they gonna nerf Carrie and Ixia? They did nerf Ixia. She was one of the first heroes, actually. Okay, next, Freya. Freya nerf is very needed. Freya's HP regen in the early to mid game was a bit too high, so we reduced the HP regen during her ult. Base HP regen per basic attack has been reduced by 20 early, 40 late. Very necessary. Freya has been tearing up pubs, and we all know the effect that she had in M7 as well. I have been consistently banning Freya in all of my ranked games, and I think this is a very necessary nerf. In fact, She could be nerfed more, but I'm actually okay with this because I also think that players are starting to figure out how to deal with Freya. There are actually counters to her, right? And if you play correctly, you can stop her from snowballing, and if she's not able to snowball, her value reduces by a lot. So I'm actually okay with them only adjusting her HP regen, because that is one of the things that was the most annoying about her. Otherwise, you can actually outplay Freya if you have the right comp and the right hero. So, although this is the hero that I personally ban every game, I actually think this is an okay nerf. I am actually quite okay with this one. Saber fixed an issue where the piercing damage of Saber skill 1 was too low against Turtle and Lord. Huh, interesting. Personally, I would prefer to see less Saber in my pub games. He's easy and fairly satisfying to play, so I understand why a lot of people would. But maybe play something else. Yi-Sun Shin, I feel like he should be nerfed actually. Slightly reduce the strategic importance of Yi-Sun Shin's ult. Yi-Sun Shin now needs to cast his ultimate closer to the target to land hits more easily. So did they reduce it? Fixed an issue where the number of enhanced basic attacks was abnormal at high attack speed. Okay. Enhanced basic attacks now benefit from attack speed. Was it not before? And then the ultimate turtle ship max duration. Okay, so he has his turtle ship for a shorter time, which I guess is good. In case anyone's wondering what that means, it's just basically, in the past, Yi-Sun Shin could summon the turtle boat and then like ride around on it for 15 seconds. Now he can only ride around on it for 10 seconds. So when they say he needs to cast his ultimate closer to the target, it means that he has less time to use it. Not that like the AoE is shorter. Okay. So fixing his basic attacks is good. Turtle ship reduced duration is also good because it really shouldn't be an ultimate that he gets to keep. Right? Because it has two facets. He gets to cast his ult to get vision of the map, and he gets to use the turtle boat. So this means he needs to be a little bit more strategic with when he uses Mountain Shocker. Because you want to use it to get vision, but if you use it too early, then you won't get to use the turtle ship to like actually engage the fight. So you have to be a little bit smarter about that. But I think that Yi-Sun Shin is still one of the better junglers in the game. He farms super fast, his scaling is good, he's got vision control. Like, he will still be a very popular hero. He just requires a little bit more strategy to play. And typically, the people who play Yi-Sun Shin know how to play Yi-Sun Shin. So this will not bother them too much. I think it is a necessary nerf, but it will not heavily impact him. Alright, finally done with the hero adjustments. No Sora nerf, Shiper is correct. They did not touch Sora at all, which I think is a mistake. I needed some water there. I play a lot of Sora, but that's because he is just that OP that I feel like if he gets let through the bans, I have to pick him. They did not touch him. That's kind of shocking. Is there anyone else they didn't touch? They didn't touch Lapu Lapu. Most of the fighters actually did not get touched. So, okay. All right, next up, let's look at the battlefield adjustment. So, what exactly did they change to necessitate adjusting the stats of every mage in the game? Glowing Wand, slightly increased magic power bonus and reduced HP bonus. Adjusted price to align with Sea Halberd. Okay, so it's the same price as Sea Halberd now, which is 100 gold cheaper. Magic power increased by 10, max HP reduced by 100. I think this is good. I think this is a very nice buff. Very needed, in fact, because for some reason Glowing Wand was more expensive than the other anti-heal item. And I think exchanging 100 HP for 10 magic power is very worth it, because most of the time mages are squishy anyway. So having a little bit of extra damage will go a long way, and having access to this item earlier will also make a big difference. So this is a nice buff to Glowing Wand that doesn't completely make it OP. I think that is very good. Ice Queen's Wand adjustment. Reduce magic power bonus. Really? Is that needed? And then the internal cooldown per stack is reduced. Hold on, what? I don't play a lot of mage. I need to check exactly what they mean by internal cooldown per stack. Okay, slow them by 10% for 2 seconds. 0.4 second cooldown. Okay, so in exchange for doing less damage, it's more of a control item. So this is also kind of a change they've made in accordance with Aurora, because if you guys remember earlier, they reduced Aurora's overall presence in exchange for slightly more CC duration. So Ice Queen's wand being able to slow faster also helps a lot. But it's not gonna help Aurora. It's gonna help other mages that want to play for slow. Heck, it's gonna help Xborg. I think Xborg is actually one of the heroes that will benefit from it the most. But a lot of other mages that want to play for slow will find this nice. So I think it's a nice adjustment for Ice Queen's wand. It's not really an item you buy for the magic power anyway, but personally I feel like they could have kept the magic power and still reduced the stack. I think that would have still been okay, because Ice Queen's wand overall is not that popular of a mage item. It's only bought on specific heroes. Oh yeah, Zusin. It could be really good on Zusin. Oh, you're right. Fudge. Okay. Alright, Enchanted Talisman. For mages with cooldown reduction builds, equipping 10% cooldown reduction from talents and purchasing Enchanted Talisman often leads to a 5% excess. Therefore, we have reduced the cooldown reduction while significantly increasing magic power to ensure that mages using this equipment do not lose too much damage. Okay, I see. So Enchanted Talisman, magic power increased by 25, max HP increased by 50 in exchange for 5% less cooldown reduction. Price increased by 200? Is that necessary? So, okay, firstly, the 5% cooldown reduction, people might look at this and say that's bad because Enchanted Talisman is supposed to be a CDR item. But in case you guys don't understand what they're saying here is, when you get the CDR from your talents and then you get the talisman, you actually have an extra 5% CDR that doesn't go anywhere, right? So that actually ends up being wasted stats. So they're taking away that so you don't have wasted stats and putting it into magic power and HP instead, which I think makes a lot of sense. It does mean that if you really want to maximize CDR, you have to take both your CDR talent and Enchanted Talisman. But usually, if you're playing a CDR mage, you will take both of them anyway, right? You will always take both of them anyway if you want to build Enchanted or take CDR a lot of the time. So that's not too big of an issue. However, 200 gold is a lot. Enchanted Talisman has always been one of the cheapest first items in the game. And it is very core for any CDR mage. I don't think they should have increased it this much. Like, if you reduce the CDR in exchange for the other stats, that's a really nice buff. If you reduce the CDR, give other stats but increase the price slightly, then that's an okay balance. But by 200 is actually notable. Again, Enchanted Talisman is usually the first item, latest second item, for mages that want to build it. It is almost always first item. Getting 200 gold before your first item takes a while, right? That is like a couple of minion waves. So I don't agree with the price nerf, but I do really like the attribute adjustment. I don't know how I'm gonna tier list this one because I like the first half, I don't like the second half. Interesting, sure. Next up, Tome of Evil, adjusted attributes for smoother mana regen. So magic power reduced by 5, cooldown reduction increased by 2, mana regen reduced by 2. I think that's fine, you're not gonna feel that too much. The cooldown reduction being accessed earlier does help. Hold on. I suddenly have a bit of a funny thought. In the past, Enchanted Talisman gave 20% CDR, Tome of Evil gave 8. Now, Enchanted Talisman gives 15, Tome of Evil gives 10. And Tome of Evil is a lot cheaper than Enchanted Talisman after the price change. There may be a possibility that now you build Tome of Evil and then build your second item rather than finishing Enchanted. Like you finish Enchanted later in the game. It's kind of similar to how like some other heroes might buy Fury Hammer first and then you get like a bruiser item or a tank item before finishing like Hunter Strike. You never really did that because Enchanted Talisman was just a much better upgrade over Tome of Evil and wasn't that expensive. Now, Tome of Evil may actually be good to hold on to because it gives you more CDR for a much cheaper price than finishing Enchanted. Just an idea. I don't play mages very much, so I can't say for certain if I'm bullshitting right now. But I could see this being a possibility. You know, just to throw it out there. Okay, next up, Holy Crystal. Enchanted Talisman unique passives are important. Yeah, I guess it depends on the hero. But I do think there's a possibility of it. Okay, Holy Crystal. The magic power provided by this equipment far exceeds its price. Really? It's already like the most expensive item in the game. We've reduced its magic power and reallocated some of it to other mage equipment. Interesting. A 20 magic power reduction. Did it really far exceed its price? It's still one of the most expensive items in the game. Like, yes, magic power is a very valuable stat, but this is a big nerf actually to most mages because a lot of mages heavily depend on Holy Crystal for that big like magic power boost, right? Even some non-mages, right? Assassins like Joy. Harif has already been gutted recently. He also heavily depends on Holy Crystal. Not having that extra magic power is actually going to affect their DPS potential in the mid game because this is a very expensive item. You would think that you'd actually like buff more of the mage's stats in exchange for this, but no, I would actually consider more of the adjustments to be nerfs. Feather of Heaven has a slightly increased magic power bonus, so that does help offset it slightly, but not every mage is gonna buy Feather of Heaven and Holy Crystal. Concentrated Energy has extra... Okay, I see now. So Holy Crystal gives slightly less magic power, but every other mage item gives slightly more magic power. So Feather of Heaven, Concentrated, Starlium all give +5. Every mage in the game will typically build one of these or another. So, alright. They did increase for Enchanted Talisman as well. So, okay, actually, this ends up being good then. This actually does end up being good. Because you get 20 less magic power from Holy Crystal, but you get a lot more from your other items, which means that you actually get that magic power earlier. You would typically have to wait until your 3rd or 4th item to build Holy Crystal in order to get that big magic power boost. But I think what Moonton is doing here is they're trying to reduce the scale. They don't want you to like do no damage and then suddenly hit like a truck once Holy Crystal is done. They want you to slowly ramp up your damage with each item you build. With Enchanted Talisman being the biggest difference because an extra 25 is actually more than what Holy Crystal lost. Now, you guys are right, when you look at all of these items, these are actually Harif items. So this actually ends up being an overall buff to Harif. It's also good for Joy, if she wants to go back into the Starlium Scythe build. And actually quite good for a lot of the assassin type mages. Like we already pointed it out earlier, Eudora got a slight buff, Veil got a slight buff. So because of the way that these items have been switched up, they might actually come online slightly earlier than before, and that's probably why they nerfed a lot of the mages early game across the board, because you actually get more magic power than you're used to now with your first couple of items. I understand now. Dominance Ice. Increase the range of the equipment's healing reduction effect and reduce hybrid defense range to match it. Unique passive trigger range has been reduced. Okay, they've reversed Dominance Ice to the old Dominance Ice effect. Right, so now you reduce HP regen of all enemies in a certain distance. This is what Dominance Ice used to do before they changed it to you reduce HP regen of people that hit you. So they reversed that. And they've also reduced the range of his hybrid defense activation. Okay. I think that's fine. I honestly think that's fine. It basically forces most Dominance Ice holders to want to be in front. But if you are a Dominance Ice holder, you're probably a frontliner anyway, so you will benefit from this, and now you're no longer held back by people not hitting you, right? Good players will be able to avoid hitting you to avoid the Dominance Ice debuff. They can't anymore. It's based on a range, so I think that's okay. But it feels like they just cannot decide whether Dominance Ice should be an AoE or like an attack effect. Oracle, reduce equipment shield and HP regen effect. Very needed. I love Oracle. A lot of people love Oracle because it is just so good. Right? Most heroes in the meta are sustain heroes. Alright? Like tank junglers want sustain, frontline fighters want sustain. Oracle is also very valuable because it gives you cooldown reduction, so it was just a really good item to build. Sometimes you'd see Fredrin going it as a first item as well. A lot of people will go Revitalize now as well on heroes like Minotaur or Hilda. And Uranus too. So this just added up to really, really difficult to kill heroes, right? Uranus is popular, Alice is popular, Esme is popular, Fredrin, all of that stuff. A nerf for this is very needed, and they've kept it fairly small to make sure it doesn't completely destroy certain heroes. So this is fine. I agree with this. Guardian Helm. Improves survivability against burst damage. HP regen from excess damage has been increased. Okay. I think this is also needed because Guardian Helm is a very, very expensive item that doesn't actually help you all that much except in niche situations, right? It's very good against true damage heroes like Leslie, but outside of that, you typically prefer other items because like what I mentioned to you guys before, defensive stats typically have higher value than just flat out HP stats. So by improving the passive a little bit so that you can regen a little bit more, even like during and after fights rather than only doing so outside of fights, this equipment becomes a little bit higher value. So I think that's very needed, and I agree with that. Guardian Helm is still kind of niche because of how expensive it is, and it's clearly not as important to a build compared to items like Holy Crystal, but I think this is good. This is an overall good change. I'd say I kind of like the item changes. It makes a lot of sense. The only thing that I'm not a big fan of is Enchanted Talisman plus 200 gold. But considering that they said Holy Crystal, with how expensive it was not worth the extra 20 magic power and they just gave it 25, I kind of understand why Enchanted Talisman had to increase its price so much. Magic power is a very valuable stat. One of these days I need to do some kind of calculation to figure out exactly like how much gold one physical attack or one magic power is worth. Ooh, alright. Emblem adjustments. Fighter emblem was too versatile, so we reduced its attack bonus. -6 adaptive attack I think is perfectly fine because yes, sustained fighters have just been too good for too long. And this is one of the things that they benefited from because they could also lifesteal. So I'm okay with this, even though I am a fighter main. I think it's about time we allow the squishier heroes in the game to actually do something. And then Marksman Emblem, change lifesteal to adaptive penetration. Ooh, I like that. That's actually really nice. Yeah, it does make it more unique because having lifesteal just means that Marksman is kind of competing against like fighter. Having penetration means that it now competes against assassin, but penetration is actually a very, very valuable stat. It's good early, it's good late, it helps you deal with higher defensive stats, which a lot of mages got recently. Yes, you lose out on lifesteal in exchange, most of the time, marksmen are not going to be tanky enough to benefit from it, right? Unless you're in specific situations like carry against a lot of tanks and so on. The longer a fight goes, the more value lifesteal gives. But the shorter a fight goes, the more value penetration provides. Marksmen, once you hit the late game, are always in a battle of you kill them first. Right? For marksmen, the goal of battle is you kill your opponents before they can kill you. So lifesteal doesn't help that much with that. Fighters benefit from lifesteal and spell VAP because their goal is to out-sustain their opponent, but marksmen want to kill first. Penetration goes a long way to helping with that. So I agree with this. Battlefield attribute adjustment, increase lane clearing speed of mid lane mage minions. Oh. Wow, okay. So the mid lane mages are slightly squishier. So yeah, this is very much a mid lane patch. They're trying to enable mid laners by giving them more early game magic power stats, a little bit more HP here and there to work with, while rescaling the way their defenses work in the late game. By reducing the HP of their mage minions as well, they can clear faster. A lot of mages were given some early game adjustments to make sure they could clear lane when they couldn't keep up before, with some exceptions like Zusin, who is wave clear was actually reduced, but that one makes sense. Here, this means they want to have the mid laners rotate more. They want to have the mid laners be more viable early rather than only playing later game scalers like Eve and Lunox. So that's interesting. I think this is good. It is indeed a bit of a mid lane meta coming by. I'm curious about what heroes will really pop up. Okay, other adjustments. Okay, so these are just like notifications. Alright, alright. Anything else down here? Ranked mode will start at a certain point. MLRO. New chat system, portrait interface, restriction. Okay. And then mayhem mode. Okay, that's it. So that is our patch note this time around. A lot of hero changes, but mostly on mages, and a lot of stat changes as well. The stat changes you're not going to see very much, but there are certainly some notable adjustments to specific heroes, right? Obsidia scales faster, Claude's not too different, Ixia's laning is less oppressive, Eve is less OP, Zusin is a little less OP but still good, Farsa got nerfed early, I don't think that was necessary. Novaria will feel better against niche comps. Eudora might be a surprisingly good pick. Gord might be a surprisingly strong pick. Loyi will hurt less early. Kagura is also a bit more solid. Valentina's early game is gonna hit like a truck. Nana's slightly more annoying. Cyclops is not too different. Aurora and Vexana are net zeros. Zask is harder to kill but doesn't offer as much value. Veil will benefit from the new item changes, but you're better off playing Kagura or Eudora. Faramis got nerfed for sure. Xavier is okay. Valier is okay. Chang'e is not too different. Odette is weird. Selena is also, why did they nerf her? Lydia is not too different. Lunox, Kimmy, all of these are only adjustment changes down here as well. Phobius feels slightly better, but still not as good. Glue is nerf, Freya is nerf, Saber is weird. Yusunshin's okay. And yeah, alright. I would say this can definitely adjust the meta somewhat. And we have needed a bit of change happening in the mid lane for a long time because it has been the most stagnant lane. Every other lane has been affected in some way across the past few patches, past few metas, but mid lane has remained largely the same. And you could even say that the hero pool has reduced over time because some are just better. Farsa used to be one of the top picks, did not get played very much at all in the later stages of M7. That's just how things adjusted, right? So this is very needed, but I don't think they really nerfed enough some heroes, especially Lunox. I feel like Lunox got out of this without too much happening to her. In fact, you could say her stats actually got buffed a little bit. But what could make a big difference is how much value early game mages have now, because Enchanted Talisman, in exchange for being slightly more expensive, gives you more stats. you can hit a lot harder with just one item compared to before. Whereas Lunox still ideally needs 2 or 3 before she becomes strong, right? So there is a chance for you to play around that, and that's where heroes like Eudora or Gord or even Valentina after the changes may be able to come online. However, it depends on whether they can actually compete with the utility of heroes like Eve and Zhu Xin. Because even though they do a little less damage or less slow compared to before, the control effect that they provide is still way better than a lot of the other options in the game right now. Not to mention that assassins and fighters and marksmen overall did not really get touched much. So the meta for those may not change all too notably, right? The fighters are a little less sustainable thanks to changes to the emblems. But item-wise, it's still the same. The heroes that were really strong didn't really get adjusted outside of like Freya. Alright, so CC, Yuzong, Sora, Lapu Lapu are all still the same as they used to be. Marksmen are still about the same, with Obsidia maybe increasing in pick rate, but she was already showing up from here to there. So while mid lane meta might see some changes, I don't really think the meta will actually change that much. Or at least in the case of like heroes being picked up, right? I do think we'll still see a lot of the same heroes being picked outside of the mid lane. Marcel will add a bit of an interesting twist, because he is a roamer that doesn't play like a typical roamer, and you actually have to be kind of smart and creative about how you want to play him to maximize his potential. But will a single hero be enough to switch things up? Sora is still almost 100% top pick. I'm pretty sure Zhu Xin is still going to be banned a lot. Fanny as well, especially if early game mages are going to become more popular. So I guess we'll see, right? We might see less fighter goal lane because of Marcel, is what Darren says, and I might agree with that. The problem is, if mages become more rotational early, right? Because you can clear waves faster now, so you might want to affect lanes more, right? If we get to see more early game mages, more early game mage assassins as well, like Gord, Eudora, Veil, and they start rotating, you actually might need to play gold lane fighters to make sure that the mid laner doesn't just come to your lane and one-shot you, right? So even if Marcel discourages frontliners, you might still prefer to play frontliners to make sure that you don't get put too behind by a losing mid lane priority. There's a lot of things to consider. I personally am hoping to see some notable changes to the meta because things have been a little bit boring for a while. But I'm not sure if this is going to be enough, even though it is one of the bigger patches that we've gotten in a while. I like that they're focusing on mid lane because I know a lot of people have been complaining about mid lane, but yeah, those are my thoughts, everyone. Make sure you guys let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you guys drop a like and subscribe if you guys want to see more of this stuff. And that's all for the patch note review, this time for Marcel. Very, very interesting. I'll see you guys in the next video, whenever that might be. Bye-bye.